Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Thursday's edition, and we are broadcasting bi-coastal from Irvine, California, and from the great state of Connecticut. Joe Visconti, welcome back to Schaftlein Report. Happy to have you with me today.
Thanks for having me again.
Hey, Joe, listen, a lot of big economic news coming out of China. We're going to talk about that. Biden's cratering poll numbers. A lot of things going on, in the country right now economically, but let's get started with what's happening in China. Have you ever seen a country take retribution against one of its largest employers, Apple Computer? Unofficially, the government in China has come out and said that government employees can no longer purchase Apple computers. Now, a lot of U.S. companies are pulling out of China, winding down operations. Joe, I'm no big fan of the Biden administration, but the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, is one of the more talented people in that administration. She came back basically with a warning that says U.S. companies, you do business where you're treated well, and they don't feel comfortable in China because they think that they're adhering to all the rules, and then China changes the rules. Joe, what's going on with the relationship with China and the U.S.? It does appear to be deteriorating. Less goods from China coming into the U.S. What does it all mean?
Well, thinking about that issue, I realized that it's a military move, because if China could shut down Apple computers and iPhones, this is a warning shot. But if they could, just imagine how they could cripple America. If you can't get new product in, if you can't get servicing, just think about what could happen. We don't realize it strategically. Our phones, and everything that operates with them, we're so married to China with this. So that's one issue. The other issue is something I've spoken about before, with the fact that China has lost a lot of, well, at least she got shocked during COVID of having all those cargo ships off her coast and onto the way to California for like a year. So they realized, and they had the experience of what happens when you can't get your stuff out of your own country. They're so really dependent on our consumer economy. And so I think this was a way to say, we can mess with you.
But it's going to have a negative effect, Joe, because, the U.S. imported less from China in this past month than any time I can remember. The numbers were not good. Chinese unemployment continues to run 20 to 30%. Heck, they quit publishing the numbers. Property values are questionable at best. There's a lot of write-downs their financial institutions are going to have to do. When you take an economy and shift it further left like China's done, this is no surprise. I mean, those growth rates were artificially inflated for years. A lot of us knew that. But here and now, you take what's happening in China, coupled with the fact that there are other Asian countries willing to absorb the labor that China previously did at a lower cost, a la a country like Vietnam, for example, where I just was. It's no surprise you're going to see that massive unemployment rates taking place in China. And with the U.S. dollar, contrary to a lot of predictions, Joe, going up near all-time highs, that's having a negative effect on other Asian countries as it makes it much more expensive for them to sell their goods.
Yeah, the development curve in Japan, as we've spoken about before, and what they had to go through when they bought the Empire State Building in Japan was rising in the 80s. And then they had to reinvent their economy culturally. China is going to be faced with that. And we are faced with that every cycle. We reinvent ourselves as a nation so many times over the course of 10 years. These countries that are just, iron fist communist countries just can't adapt to what needs to be done. And so you're seeing it'll end up becoming an external reaction rather than an internal change. And they're going to be forced to change. Japan did, other nations have, and China doesn't want to because they don't. They take so much of our technology and our art, and they steal it, and they copy it. And so they need to steal some of the ways that we adapt and change our markets and our culture, so that they can learn. And they haven't learned to steal that yet, but they're going to have to. Otherwise, they're going to hit a brick wall.
Joe, isn't there a lot of Chinese spies here in this country that aren't even identified by the State Department?
Yeah, that's the other thing. The spies, the people from North Korea, Iran. Just think about all the intelligence that's going on here,
Yeah.
and how the things that are being said that we don't see. In other words, the headlines here show us, well, China's doing this, but they're watching the espionage, and so they can see a lot of our plans. So they may be reacting towards more than just what we see on the surface. America moving a certain way, and like blowing up the pipeline. If we didn't do it, I don't know who did. In Germany, they're watching all this. They see it all. So, those moves are strategic for one thing, but they can mean another. So you've got a lot of Game of Thrones going on with China and Russia right now. And America, as well as the Brits, have always been great. We learned from the Brits how to use those countries, and all of them. And look at Great Britain; she could run the world on ships and several 100,000 men. And so we're masters at that. They aren't, and
Well, it's gonna have a profound effect. I mean, with the dollar again soaring in value, this is what's odd, Joe. Normally, when the dollar goes up, oil goes down because of the relationship. That's not happening now. The dollar's going up. Oil is around $90 a barrel. China has to import the vast majority of its oil, and I'll get into the stupidity of what Biden's doing in just a second. But the fact that, again, near $90 a barrel. Joe, here in California, if you buy premium unleaded, you're paying $5.75 to $6.10 a gallon. Regular unleaded, you're closer $5.40, $5.50. Okay, prices coming to other parts of the country soon. And then you take with what's happening. I try to be respectful of the office, but it is incomprehensible how we could have a fool in the White House that we have right now who just signed away under an executive order challenging existing legislation that had already been passed. The fact that he's closing off the vast majority of drilling for oil and natural gas in ANWAR, which is northern Alaska, Arctic Ocean, contains, it's an environment, the environmental wackos, to them, that's the holy grail, ANWAR. It's an economically sensitive area. Guess what, Joe? It contains 7.6 billion barrels of oil. Barrels. It contains 7 billion cubic feet of natural gas. Proven reserves. No wonder these companies sign leases on it. And now the Biden administration comes in and basically voids out those leases?
Yeah. It's a way of meddling in the Middle East again, because if you're relying on the Middle East, you can continue the games and the playing with Turkey and Iraq and Syria and Saudi Arabia. And it's just a reinvention of what the Abraham Accord was working towards breaking. And so if you shut off everything here, you become dependent just because you make yourself dependent. You then have to have resources and military campaigns and everything ready to go in case there's strife in the Middle East that you basically engineered as a country. And that's the game they're playing. That's his old game. It's over. It's the neocons, and they don't want to stop.
Yeah, but these are liberal Democrats, Joe. These are radical climate activists, liberal Democrats in the White House, unnamed people who basically, Biden's not smart enough to come up with an idea like this. Some staffer said, wouldn't this be a great idea? It would help climate change.
Well, it does. It's using climate change on the liberal side for their own crazy insanity. But the neocons and the military could use it for their own benefit. See how this thing works?
Oh, of course. It's beyond. Can you imagine if Russia, China, India were sitting on billions of barrels of oil and natural gas? Do you think there's a snowball's chance their government would come in and say, no, for the sake of climate change, we're not going to drill? When the U.S. represents less than 5% of the world's population, it's beyond me how stupid this White House is. In actuality, it could be a blessing for our side, because as the rest of the country starts to experience California-type gas prices, and it will come, because if you limit supply and demand increases, what happens to prices, Joe? They go up.
Well, the energy has always been a tool to create war, conflict, treaties, trade. It's a whole game of monopoly. Game of Thrones, call it what you will. And, there's no telling where anybody stands on that game. But asking Germany to run her economy, third largest economy in the world, have her exporter, have her run her on windmills, because that's what's going to happen right now.
Of course.
And so, no, really. And so this has ramifications, but I don't believe that it's Biden doing any of this. I believe whoever is behind Biden, whether it's Obama and his clan, and the people that are working to satisfy what the left wants. The reality is our economy continues to boom. Now, remember Reagan?
Yeah.
What Reagan said, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, the government regulate it. If it fails, subsidize it. And that's what they're doing. They're driving it. You can't stop our economy. You just can't, because we keep reinventing and become more efficient, and makes people want to buy more air conditioners that are in cars and appliances and phones. The more efficient Americans are always going to trade up for the more efficient. We're becoming very efficient and very green.
Yeah, but I mean, this thing, the Biden administration, it's an assault on our economy. And it's basically rewarding competitors in other countries that are going to produce oil and gas. I mean, to me, I'm like, what are they thinking?
The word you're looking for is treason.
Well, I wouldn't go that far in this, but my God, someone put the dunce cap on. I mean, I know he's not a sharp guy. But it's like it's like the old granddad. Hey, granddad, sign this paper. Oh, okay. What does it say? Well, it says we're going to be doing good environment. Oh, great. I'm in favor of the environment. Oh, great. And he signs it. I mean, it's just it's unconscionable. I mean, this land, Joe, is in the north part of the Arctic Circle. I bet there's not 10 Americans that have ever been to ANWAR, as it's commonly called.
When I said it was treason, it's because if you can break the spirit and break the economy of the American people, when the Constitution and what you're supposed to do is provide for them, the welfare of them, that's what the Constitution says, it is treasonous to undermine them for no reason. If it's not treasonous, it's insanity. Take your pick.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it really is. And again, ANWAR, we're talking about. I think the acronym is Alaska National Wildlife and Environmental Refuge, something like that. And there's a lot of moose and a lot of, winter type things that, you never see that stuff here.
But again, they can drill, and they are drilling and pumping so completely high tech today compared to 40
It's unbelievable. It's astounding what they're able to do. And now, here again, look at how this economy could be unleashed. I mean, forget it's Biden for a minute, because people don't like Biden. They don't like his policies. But there is a clear disconnect, Joe, going on in this economy. Wall Street is really surprised at how the growth has come this year. We're growing faster than anticipated. It might be near 3%. And you got unemployment rates sub 4. I mean, those are numbers to kill for, okay? And yet it's bifurcated. You've got certain people who are rolling up their sleeves, going to work every day, whether you're blue collar, white collar, you're in the game, you're in the economy. And you got a whole generation of millennials and Gen Zers, hell, they don't want to work. And they're not participating. Some still live at home with their parents in the basement, a la Joe Biden, okay? So, Joe, what's going on in this economy? I mean, you got 40% of the American public one paycheck away from bankruptcy.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about that for a couple of years with the credit card debt, which people don't realize is so bad. You can look at Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. You can see people selling and flipping so much stuff. Just go monitor that for a while. Mm-hmm. And the government's over there looking for their piece of the action now, because it's moving. And why? People are moving around. People are dumping. They're buying new. They're getting rid of old. It's, this is what I said to you about versus China. We're constantly reinventing ourselves and very fluid. Countries like China and even Russia, they don't have a consumer economy. They can't reinvent. They can't have Amazon boxes dropped off like in a minute, and then all of a sudden get rid of your couch or your living room set or whatever. That's why our economy, people are trying to upgrade towards the lifestyles that they want, or adaptive lifestyles, from the elderly to the millennials and the people that are looking to buy a house or settle down or have kids, which that's one of the big problems we have. young people aren't having kids.
Well, I mean, it's hard to blame them given the fact that you got all these Democrats running around in Washington. I get that. But, it's really interesting, Joe. Part of the reason we're having such a strong economy is the government continues to spend money it doesn't have. I mean, this legislation that got passed, all these Biden achievements, if you will, I mean, they're spending money we don't have. It's like the government's ringing up the credit card debt that's now approaching $32 trillion. And that money does.
That's also, that number is real, but the unfunded liabilities of your municipalities across America and your states across America, you're looking at hundreds of trillions of dollars. If you add what's out there leveraged, and it's one big machine that's leveraged, not even printed money anymore.
Oh, yeah.
We're moving now into something where you're gonna see the country have to move into debt forgiveness, not for college loans, but when you reach a certain level, things break, and before they break, they need to put programs out, not for handouts, but that's what's going to happen eventually. This thing is going to run into a brick wall.
It's amazing. You and I travel all around the world. Most countries don't have the programs, these safety nets that we have in this country. So let me move on here, okay? We've talked about Biden and his policies, and Bidenomics is not popular. Whoever came up with that name, they ought to fire the marketing guy that did it. People do not like it. They do not feel good about his economy. Joe, I think it could be in the messenger itself. People do not like Joe Biden. He is getting, and I'm sort of shifting around here, CNN poll. Not exactly a conservative establishment. They have Biden at 39%. Joe, those are Jimmy Carter type numbers. And no sitting president has ever been reelected with an approval rating below 40. It has not happened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people do not, they look at this guy and they realize he's over 80 years old, going on 81. He's cognitively in decline. They lie every time John Corrine Pierre gets up to the podium, and people are seeing through this stuff.
Yeah. At least 40% of his time has been on vacation. I put that up. More than 40. So he's and he's not there when he's there. And again, not to knock it, this is what we elected.
Yep.
This is what the American
Joe Biden, the CEO of the United States. Hard to believe.
And so, the buck doesn't stop anywhere with Joe Biden.
No, it's unfortunate.
You could beat it like a dead horse, but the reality is there's other people running the country, and that's the scary thing because you don't know who it is, and you don't know what their intentions are. You can see what you just talked about, ANWAR. You can see what their intentions are, but you can't blame it on Biden because he doesn't have a brain left.
No, he doesn't.
So you're shadow boxing in your mind with what's going on with our nation. This is like a rogue nation running our country. We don't even know who it is.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit behind some of these polling numbers here. Democrats, Joe, by a number of 2-1, Democrats do not want this guy as their nominee. That's astounding. And in all the recent polling I've seen, whether it's Biden versus Trump, Biden versus DeSantis, Biden versus Vivek Ramaswamy, all of those polls, 46, 47%, all within the margin, very, very close. An oddity poll came out showing Nikki Haley beating him by 6. It may be great headline stuff, but right now Trump's beating Nikki Haley by 40 points. So, I mean, your thoughts on the polling, Haley?
I just did a Hartford Current interview about half an hour ago. And Ron DeSantis is coming to Greenwich, Connecticut next week. I'm a Trump guy here in Connecticut, so we'll hold a protest rally with all the wealthy people in Greenwich. It's kind of uniparty down there. Democrats, Republicans aren't even into social issues. But Nikki Haley came, and I paid to see her at the Bush dinner in June. And I said she'd make a great vice president. And I stick to that. And I didn't say it as a jab, but she brings to the table, never mind president, she won't make that just because the system and the numbers, but she brings to the table what we need as a party if it was Trump. Because the Trump people don't like her, but at the same time, they've learned from Mike Pence that maybe some of the things they didn't like about him, they found out too late. But so DeSantis is coming here for money. He's begging for cash in Connecticut. Nikki's is rising, and Trump picked her before, like it or not. We need to have a woman president, and I think she'll probably be the first one. I see her as a VP for 4 years, and then moving up and taking over the field. I see DeSantis, God bless him, but I see him just jump the gun. He should have done what Newsom done and stayed home and just waited his turn, and he's really messed himself up. He's got to come to Greenwich, Connecticut for money. I'm sorry, I know you like him, and I do love him too. Don't get me wrong, but don't do a Ted Cruz and don't do a Marco Rubio to yourself. And kind of that's what I feel he did.
Let me take the counter side to that trade. Okay.
I know.
All right. Again, he's been my governor for now 6 years. He's done a great job in the state of Florida. Let me share this with you. There's a lot of presidents that lost the first time they tried to run, a la Richard Nixon, a la LBJ. LBJ ran. He became president the wrong way. George Herbert Walker Bush, from whose father was right from your neck of the woods there. H.W. Bush lost, was named vice president, eventually became president. Nixon lost, was Eisenhower's vice president, became president. Okay, so there's two recent examples right there of presidents who, I'm leaving off the godfather of them all, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan lost.
Yeah.
And then Ronald Reagan became. So three recent examples. So listen, I don't begrudge Ron DeSantis running at all. And you and I have talked about this. I think the stronger primary field we have, let's say Trump goes on to win. Is he better off having faced a strong field? Because you know when it gets to the general, here's the crazy numbers. Americans do not want Biden by a big time number. 53% people say they'll never vote for Trump. Somebody's got to pick up that vote. And Joe, early indications are 10% of people that voted for Biden will now switch their vote to Trump. And you and I know what that means. In the 6 or 8 states where the election's really going to matter, that could be the difference between winning and losing.
Well, this is where Nikki Haley comes in. I don't think Noam from Dakota is the person. I think it's going to be a woman for VP. I think Trump wins this thing, the primaries all the way. Even if he's in prison, he's going to win even more, and more money will come. It is done. And I just did the current interview, and I said it's done. DeSantis drops by January. I know it. He's out. He's not gonna hurt himself that bad.
No. If he doesn't pick up and do well in Iowa,
stay home, do what he's going to do, and he should fundraise for the party, help a lot of senators, governors, whatever. And not to knock him at this point, but we don't need to bleed out all this cash. We need to focus the money on the swing states and target the Senate races and keep the House. So we've got our work to do. We don't need the nonsense when everyone's down at 6 or 7 or 8. He was up there, but his star has faded. He just got what Jeb Bush had said when he lost. He said, I ran into the Trump phenomenon, and that's true. And that's what DeSantis just did. He ran into the Trump. And most people thought the fatigue. And it's not really, and I want to say this, I told the Hartford Courant today, he was totally liberal, but it's true. They know me for years. It's not that we look at his limitations and his problems as a person and we overlook them. We don't do that. We know his policies are great. We know he's going to fight. We know he doesn't need the money personally. And so everybody who is for
I don't know if that last one's true or not, given all his legal.
He always needs money, but I mean, he could just fade away and do what he's doing with his golf courses, and that'd be done. He'll always have hundreds of millions or $1 billion or something, but he's more famous overseas than he is even here.
Oh, listen.
But the reality is we want him because of what we think he can do in this juncture. But the question I have for you is, who can stand up to the establishment? Who can stand up to the machine? This thing, when Trump is gone, and he will be, whether he's gone next year or he's gone in 4 years, what's next for us on the table for our bench? And this
I think we have a pretty damn good bench, to be honest with you. But I don't want to jump ahead to 2028 just yet because let me share this. I am more confident Trump will be the Republican nominee than I am Joe Biden will be the Democratic nominee, and that may shock a lot of people. But let you and I break it down a little bit. Joe, I believe whether it's Trump or someone else, whoever Republican is, they're better off running against Joe Biden, because I'd rather run against a frail, 81-year-old man whose policies are not popular, who's personally not popular, who, again, if it's Trump, 10% of people that voted for Biden said they will switch their vote. Biden may appeal to the true Democrats, just like Trump does Republicans, but that big swath of 40 to 45% independent voters, they don't like what they see right now. Am I missing something, or is there really a Gavin Newsom behind the scenes that could emerge for the Democrats?
You've heard me say it on your show a bunch of times, and I've been doing this for 6 months with Newsom. But when I saw him on Sean Hannity, and I told you, for everyone listening or watching out there, I oppose everything he stands for. Okay.
Yeah.
But when I watched him for 2 shows, and not because Sean was just weak, he knew the biggest thing was, and I've debated governors running for governor before, and you got to know everything at the tip of your tongue, your mind. He knew the stats, he knew the law, he knew the regulations. He's sharp as a tack. He's charismatic. He was a great-looking guy. He's got $1 million smile. He's self-deprecating. He owns his mistakes, as many as he can. Yeah. He can spin and spin and spin. And America's not used to seeing Gavin. You guys out in California are. We see him occasionally in the media. And he's waiting his turn, and I think they bring him out. I think they bring him out in January. I think they bring him out when Kamala can't raise the money or poll. And he comes out with high poll numbers when Biden says he's not running for illness or whatever. And he can raise the money in a New York minute.
Well, I'll agree with everything you just said. The only person who's less popular than Joe Biden is Kamala Harris. I mean, she got a grand total of 0 votes. 0.
Well, they don't want her to. They wouldn't want her to spend this whole year. Let's pretend Joe decides not to run 2 months ago or right now. She's going to get out there and campaign. They can't have her on the trail, blowing it with all the mistakes she makes in speaking. So they'll need to give her no time. And she could try to run, but the minute the polls come up on CNN, Gavin Newsom's at 64% of Democrats or whatever, like Trump, and Kamala at 3%. Like Chris Christie, and at that point, she can't get the money, she can't get the poll numbers. She can run all she wants.
Let me throw this scenario out to you. What's the chance you could end up seeing Gavin Newsom against Hillary Clinton in a Democratic primary?
Well, Hillary never goes away, but I just think, I think age, you talk about age and fatigue and tired. I don't think she can summon a campaign. There's no newness. Everybody likes newness. Gavin would bring in newness.
He would be much tougher to beat than Joe Biden.
Very tough. I don't think we beat him.
Yeah, it'd be tough. It clearly would be. That's why, I know a lot of Democratic strategists. They may listen to our show occasionally, but they're not. We're not high on their list. But I'm not telling them anything everybody doesn't already know. I mean, come on. I mean, this has been out there for a while.
Yeah, everybody knows. And again, you guys in California see a lot of him. We know California's sinking. But how he maneuvered and spun around Hannity for 2 shows, oh my God, I was believing.
Yeah, I saw the highlight.
Oh my God.
It's pretty damn impressive. The guy won a landslide governorship here. He won a landslide recall election. I mean, look, the guy's popular out here. All right, let me, and he just is. Let me talk to you about a couple other things. Okay, we got a few minutes left. Late breaking news today, Peter Navarro, convicted, 2 misdemeanor counts, criminal contempt of Congress. Are you surprised at all about Navarro getting convicted? Took the jury 4 hours.
What about Eric Holder? How come nothing happened with him?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Same thing.
That's why when that goes to the Supreme Court, that's what they're going to kick it out, because they didn't do it to Holder, and they didn't want to pick and choose who they want to indict for not showing up. And for him, it was executive privilege. Eric Holder was trading guns and all kinds of stuff. So come on. Again, this double standard won't work at the Supreme Court level, but we have to get these cases up there.
Speaking of guns, what about the news Hunter Biden's going to be charged with a gun crime? I mean, come on.
He'll be pardoned before the judge drops the gavel. He'll be pardoned. All right, they got the pardon already ready to go. It's already signed already.
It's unbelievable. And talking about failed policies, Joe Visconti, whatever happened to the sanctuary city embrace of illegal immigrants? Eric Adams, the esteemed mayor of a city where you're going to be over the next couple days, he came out and he actually said migrants will destroy New York City. That is a far different cry than we heard months ago. New York, LA, San Francisco, et al., Portland, throw them all in there, sanctuary cities. Now they're like, in the words of Chris Ryan, back. Well, what's happening here, Joe, with the illegal immigrants in our deep
Well,
blue cities.
when I ran for Congress in 2008 against John Larson here in Connecticut, who's been a congressman forever, I actually sent some of the Trump people at the top what I did. I was calling for the RICO Act and the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut to go after the sanctuary city of New Haven at the time. It wasn't a sanctuary state. And we found a bank. We found the La Raza group. We found the city of New Haven. And their employees were hiding and harboring. So I said, RICO needs to be used. Well, I sent that whole article up to Trump's people and told them, you need to start using RICO against sanctuary cities because you're paying employees of these institutions. That's how RICO works. So the bigger thing about, never mind, the shock and awe of New York, the reality is racketeering. This is racketeering. The illegal aliens are being harbored with taxpayers' money and employees. It's a criminal federal enterprise. And so Trump's people have it now. They've had it for 2 weeks. Don't be surprised to see RICO because they came after him in Georgia for RICO. We need to come after all the states that are harboring illegal aliens with the RICO statutes.
It's just amazing to me how they all wanted them. They all wanted them, and now where are we going to put them? What are we going to do? Again, it's another example of a poor Biden policy down on the border, open borders. I mean, unfortunately, that issue is not one of the top 5 issues motivating voters, but it's out there, and it's just another example of a Biden failure. We got a couple minutes and close it out. I got to mention Ukraine. Blinken was over there supporting Ukraine. Listen, you just had drone strikes in Rostov-on-Don, destroying a military headquarters there. That was the town where Yevgeny Prigozhin actually took control of for a while. It's on the Ukraine border. They run military headquarters there for the war. Ukraine's using drones, massive explosions. Joe, some people are saying Ukraine is really taking the fight to them. I know a lot of weapons, money are going to Ukraine. Tell me, what's it going to take to get this war done?
I just think we're seeing an axis form between China, Russia, and North Korea now. This is real. It's an axis.
Yeah.
And Kim doesn't have to fire his rockets off into the Pacific Ocean or wherever he's firing them off of South China Sea. You're going to see them mobilizing and backing up Russia. They're not going to allow NATO to come forward. And this is a military campaign. The United States is using it for whatever its purposes are. But the reality is, the defense contractors are just, and never mind making money on it, right. They're developing new weapons. This is another war game episode, an enterprise. And I just think they're going to wait for Trump. I think Russia is playing rope-a-dope until Trump is back in. That's what I think.
And then you'll think some type of settlement will get reached and it'll come to an end.
Well, it should have been already, and it should be today. And it should be because Russia would only keep certain areas around its border. It's not interested in taking Ukraine. But the money keeps pouring in, and the millions and billions keep getting squandered and stolen. It's the corruption to kingdom come. And I'd like to see some real news reports on the ground in Ukraine on CBS Evening News inside. Have you seen one in the last 2 years?
You get most of what you see comes from bloggers on the internet or Ukraine propaganda videos showing how they killed 20 Russians here, 80 there.
And Russia's not going to send us anything. So the bottom line is we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you're getting a perspective from Ukraine mostly. And look, Russia's doing everything they can to hide the dead bodies because they can't afford to have people rising up against it like would happen in a non-totalitarian country. I mean,
that's why you're seeing the axis I'm speaking about, and you're watching axis of coming out with China, North Korea, because they have to be active too, and they have to play their war games also. So the reality is, it's if China can't manufacture and sell all of its stuff to the cargo ships that out in Long Beach, then they're just going to start manufacturing. They made cities they don't use. They can easily make armament and send it over there. So it's a very delicate situation only because there's so many nuclear warheads in that region.
Speaking of nuclear warheads, the U.S. has warned both China and North Korea and indirectly to Russia. You go through with this, the U.S. has intercontinental ballistic missiles that are not nuclear armed that would not be surprising to me if they flew over North Korea if this thing comes about. Just as a reminder, hey,
We have neutron bombs. We have subs all across the South China Sea, the Indian
Oh,
Ocean. China is really surrounded. It's not the way people think China's she's a paper tiger compared to what we have. But who wants to use
Well,
it?
yeah, China's got the largest navy in the world, though. I mean,
Yeah, but it's diesel aircraft carriers. This is not state of the art stuff.
No, I get it. I get it.
Once the war game, the real reality is there is no real reason for these conflicts. They can go away in a moment, and it could be peace, and we could trade, and the world could be happy. But the evildoers, like George W. used to say, and the neocons. I'm sorry, Americans. I'm American, but the neocons in America, they want play football. They want war.
It's an odd couple. The far left, the left wing of the Democratic Party, and neocons on the same side.
Yeah, it's the bizarre as hell.
Pretty amazing. All right, 30 seconds left. You're going to be in New York. I want you to take some video of all this homelessness, crime, illegal immigrant, all the cesspool of stuff going on, which is why people are...
Tomorrow night, Saturday night, I'll be in Times Square, where a lot of it's happening.
Yeah.
And I'll get you a whole bunch of stuff for your show so you can see what's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
And, there's no smell around, so you
won't be able to smell it on TV. But, Joe, you were our correspondent on the ground January 5th and January 6th. At the White House. You were there. So, look, it's good that you're there. Look, there's crime going on in all these cities. San Francisco, Washington, D.C., New York, Philly, you name it. I mean, just out here in L.A., a young couple, 21, 18 years old, and their 1-year-old, sitting in a car, some clown comes up and shoots them. Probably a gang-related thing. You got to kill 2 people to get in the gang. Who the hell knows? But it's crimes everywhere, and yet, people they're fleeing these blue cities. And you're going to be able to report on it.
I'll grab some stuff tomorrow for you guys in the show. Thank you for having me.
Joe, thanks as always. Folks, we try to cut through the propaganda, tell you straight. We'll be back next week. For all our viewers and listeners, you stay safe over the weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday. See you then. Thanks, Joe. Have a great trip to New York.